as masculine or feminine, because most people of a certain age, that being over 35, who, if you ask at camp, are going to think of the Batman TV series, and therefore they think of it in camp as being a masculine thing. I think
not to interrupt, I think most people over 35 are straight. As the Batman TV show.
Right. I'm talking specifically the comic book, in the comic book world. Whereas I think most people in the younger world might think of something that would be thought as a more feminine sort of. They might think of it as being a gay camp or a feminine camp or something funny as opposed to something that's a parody.
Right.
And so I think like
camp is a gay thing. And I think that if Wonder Woman were, Wonder Woman is one thing that Batman and Superman don't have. All she would have to do is flash her boobs and she could take down the Joker or her instantly.
So you're doing, Michael, you're doing a book that's an independent book. So you don't have a little campy.
And I have the
Is that the Betty White
cover
the Betty White
and
one?
the Betty White cover.
Oh, Betty White. So you don't have the constraints necessarily that someone working for a larger company with an established character would.
I can screw it up all on my own.
Well, you can make any decision you want. You can do anything you want to do. So with that freedom, do you find yourself going in unexpected places or places that...
A woman would be able to hold a man in my comic.
Well, she'd probably be able to hold him and do something that's really unmentionable.
About that moment you're talking about filling our Worlds of War, that's the one moment from that whole event that I remember. It was the one moment. You know, after a while, after it's just superheroes and supervillains beating the shit out of each other, it's like watching someone play a video game. So it's human moments that grounded. Why we care about Spider-Man is because he's fighting Dr. Octopus, it's because he's late for school, so he has a flu, and he can't pay his rent. All the other stuff is what I call in Hollywood's second unit. So it's like, and that moment seems truest to what Morton Marston did in the creation of it by submitting to her in a way that makes him even stronger because he's willing to break down most people. So it's ironic, Bill, that you just did a teapot because that's a moment, that's a lasting moment, I think, for a lot of people long after the crossover of the year is gone.
And actually, I had a letter published in Wonder Woman about a different scene where Hippolyta died.
right.
And it was a really brutal and graphic depiction of what war can be like. It's not like glory and marching off and being proud. It's also pain and ugly death.
Those are the two.
Those were the scenes.
Only two scenes I remember from that entire crossover is the Superman
Maybe.
scene and the Hippolyta scene. And I really, it's unfortunate that those are the scenes I remember from that. What do I remember from Identity Crisis? A rape. What do I remember from Infinite Crisis? Nothing. What do I remember from Black Lantern Corps?
Didn't somebody punch reality?
Mira vomiting blood. You know, I mean, it's like there's no emotional elements to them that rings in any way true to me.
I would argue Infinite Crisis, I'll give Infinite Crisis the one that was in the first issue. When Batman said to Superman, the last time you inspired me when you were dead. That was a nice unintentional comment on where we were in the place of comics when everything was...
Oh, I remember Phil's wonderful art on that series.
Oh, I know.
but you know, it's telling that if I think about the multiple crossovers that DC as a company consist of, those are the moments that I remember the best are the ones that spoke to me and said, wow, how would I feel, or what would happen if, and how would this character actually...
And those are kind of the ones that are the hardest to make, to get into the final book.
Yeah.
So let's go with question.
All right, hello. Please excuse me if
Is that on?
Oh, no, it's not.
Please excuse me if I'm like nervous or anything. But like one of the things that like you all know that Wonder Woman was originally created by William Moulton Marston as like as a symbol of hope, peace, and compassion and things like that. But do you believe that in recent years, due to editorial trying to make her more marketable in certain things, like for example, her killing Maxwell Lord, the animated film, and things like that, do you think in order to make her marketable, she has to become something that goes against like many of the foundations that William Moulton Marston and even George Perez have established about the character, to the point where she's becoming a different character entirely.
So like made her more violent or more ruthless or more.
Yeah, like one of the traits that I loved about Wonder Woman was she was able to show compassion for even the most vilest people. Like, for example, in your run, she was able to show compassion for Cersei and Darkseid. Yet it just bothered the hell out of me that like she was able to blatantly call Maxwell Lord, a guy who he had a good reason of becoming evil, and just blatantly saying, "You deserve to die. You're a monster."
I totally, I'm gonna have to cut you off on that. I don't know how anyone else on the panel feels. I actually thought the moment of her actually having to make that decision to kill Maxwell Lord in the context of a superhero universe makes her more heroic, because heroes have to make tough decisions that affect lots of people. I actually think, and this is a part of the inspiration for Man of Steel, I actually think that Batman is more responsible for all the people the Joker's killed in the years. He's let him go to Arkham, let him go. Sometimes if you have a rabid dog, you know what the rabid dog's nature is, and the rabid dog's not going to get better. And to protect people around you, you have to make the tough choice. And I thought that moment was a defining moment in her that was honest to her character, because she didn't enjoy doing it. She didn't say, "Hey, Bob, I'm the
And
best."
she's done it before. I mean, in the Perez run, she killed. Was it Deimos? It was Deimos, right?
Yeah, but like Max was generally a good guy. Like he only became evil because he realized, oh look, these guys are getting a bit too powerful, right? Something needs to be done.
Let me interject on this to keep it sort of panel specific as opposed to, well, I'm actually very anti the Maxwell Death Lord, but for more practical reasons. But that said, in terms of what's interesting to me about the LGBT angle about this is that Wonder Woman started in the 40s as a character who, had an invisible jet, rode a sparkly costume, created fun factories to make sure people had a good time during World War II, and rode kangaroos. Now, she has to kill villains in order to sort of be an effective character. She ends up in sort of black leotard, like really ugly costume, to be marketable to a consumer base that I don't think generally cares about her. What I find fascinating, just from a LGBT standpoint, is that this character, which started out as actually really sort of fun, I'd say hypersexualized, character who sort of gloried in being physically active and having fun, and even when she took down villains, it wasn't because, even at the most dire, on some level it was a sense of competition, and I'm gonna beat them because I can do that.
And she was having fun with
And
it.
she was having fun, and that has been almost all but eliminated in this current version, whose only reaction to villain, and one of my big issues with it is the setup, is to snap his neck. And so I'm kind of fascinated, who apparently appeals to Marc, and it appeals to other people too, but to like a LGBT community, it doesn't appeal to me. That's not what I looked at that character for.
But see, that was the Wonder Woman I grew up with. See, that I grew up with, of course, the television show.
Sure.
And then my first Wonder Woman comics were George Perez comics.
Right.
And for me, the ones that came before, like all the ones in the 70s and 60s and the back of the 40s, those, I can't read those. I don't read those at all because they don't, historically they're interesting, but they don't hold a lot of actual humanness in it to me. Just because that's where I started to look and it's not that it's right or wrong.
No, and the old stuff to me is ultimately it's academic. I just think it's more interesting that where we start in World War II, no less, if you contextualize that was not a happy time period for people, and yet these comic books are coming out basically with a character who was there to teach, to inspire children, to bring a bit about happiness to people, in a really dark, dire time, and yet now where we're living, which you could argue certainly there's darkness in our world, but I think it could also be argued we're here now and not rationing food, and yet somehow the character has evolved into this place where the only way she can be taken seriously is destroy Paradise Island, put her in a black leotard, and make sure she snaps necks. I just find myself wondering if young...
She's the snap-neckiest of Justice
if
League.
that's appealing to the audience.
Going back to what Mark said, okay, if you can stop Neuron, who is the devil, without killing him, and think about it, how many times has Superman been mind controlled? A lot happens almost every week. So you have to question the logic of that storyline.
You don't question logic in superhero comics. You just make your brain explode.
The line behind is getting pretty long.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do one.
All right, sorry.
Make sure.
We got, they get